Iori, a first-year university student, moved to the coastal city of Izu, planning to live with his uncle Toshio. Toshio owned the Grand Blue diving equipment shop. Upon arrival, Toshio invited Iori to explore the shop while he parked the car. Since he was about to start college, Iori decided to stay with his uncle. It had been 10 years since he last visited the coastal city. While enjoying the sea view, Iori suddenly noticed a girl removing her diving suit. Their eyes met. Shortly after, Toshio called him, and Iori immediately went to his uncle. Iori felt he had seen the girl somewhere before and was curious about the kind of people he would meet in his new environment. Opening the door, Iori was shocked to see a group of men playing rock, paper, scissors. These people were far from what Iori had expected in his new surroundings. Toshio welcomed Iori to his shop. Iori quickly asked why there was something strange in front of him, but Toshio mentioned that people always told him the apron he wore didn't suit him. However, that wasn't what Iori was talking about. He questioned why the group of men was completely naked. Toshio explained that this happened every day in his shop. Iori immediately ran out saying he wanted to go home. Shinji and Ryujiro noticed this and approached Toshio. Shinji asked Toshio who the guy that just arrived was. Toshio said it was Iori, his nephew from Izu University. Hearing this, Shinji and Ryujiro mentioned they had the chance to recruit a new member. Meanwhile, Iori wondered why there were perverts in his uncle's shop. Not long after, Shinji and Ryujiro chased after him, calling his name. Seeing this, Iori panicked and ran as fast as he could to avoid them. They called Iori shy, but Iori was more concerned about their naked appearance. It didn't take long for Shinji and Ryujiro to bring Iori back to the Grand Blue shop. Toshio still thought Iori was just homesick and said he would get used to it over time. Iori admitted he had run away because he was shocked to see everyone partying naked. They indeed liked to dress that way, but at that time they were playing rock, paper, scissors to determine who would prepare the diving equipment tanks, and for them, being naked was normal during the game. Ryujiro was chosen to prepare the tanks, and Iori accompanied him. Ryujiro introduced himself as a second-year mechanical engineering student at Izu University. Iori turned out to be in the same department as Ryujiro. Suddenly, Ryujiro confessed he would be happy if Iori joined his club, but Iori said he wasn't interested. Ryujiro then forced Iori to sign the club's registration form. Ryujiro asked if Iori was interested in diving. Iori was indeed interested but didn't want to do it because he couldn't swim. According to Ryujiro, if someone always stays in their comfort zone, they won't be able to go anywhere, and the important thing is whether they're interested in stepping out of that zone. Suddenly, a girl who had just finished diving approached Iori and greeted him. Iori looked confused, prompting the girl to ask if Iori had forgotten her. Nanaka, his cousin. Iori then realized and immediately apologized. Nanaka understood, considering they hadn't seen each other for 10 years. Nanaka asked if Iori had seen Chiza, expressing that Iori would be surprised at how cute Chiza had become. Nanaka mentioned that she and Chiza had just finished diving. Hearing this, Iori suspected the girl he had met earlier was Chiza. Nanaka asked if Iori was interested in joining Shinji's club. Iori said he wasn't interested, not because he didn't like diving, but because he was a technical school graduate and wanted to keep his distance from the technical school atmosphere. As Iori opened the door to the cafe, he saw a group of men without clothes. Nanaka then told Shinji to keep an eye on Iori. Ryujiro announced that they were holding a welcome party for Iori. Iori immediately stated that he had no intention of joining the club, but Ryujiro told him not to say such things and insisted that Iori always rejected something before even trying it. Iori denied it, but Ryujiro pointed out that Iori often complained about things he had never experienced, just like when he said being naked outdoors was bad even though he had never tried it. Ryujiro urged Iori to drink alcohol and invited him to play rock, paper, scissors while making to gain some experience. Iori shouted that he had no need for such an experience, but Ryujiro argued that there was no such thing as a useless experience. Shinji also encouraged him to try it, but Iori still refused. No matter how much they tried to persuade him, he refused to be dragged into their insane games. That night, Chiza walked alone, still wondering if the person she had seen earlier was really Iori. Suddenly, memories of her time with Iori 10 years ago resurfaced. When Chiza entered Grand Blue, she was shocked to see Iori among the alcoholics playing rock, paper, scissors. He had even won 3 times in a row and wanted to lose on purpose just to show off. Chiza walked in and Nanaka greeted her. Iori immediately greeted her as well and placed his hand on her shoulder, but Chiza quickly brushed it off. She even considered taking off her clothes just because Iori had touched her. unable to believe how much he had grown into such an idiot. Iori tried to explain that it was not what Chisa thought. He had no idea things would turn out that way. Ryujiro and Shinji commented that Iori was lucky to be living with his cute cousin. Iori, however, complained that Chisa treated him like garbage. He did not care though, since Nanaka also lived with him. However, it turned out that Nanaka was an extreme siscon. Iori could not comprehend what had happened in the past 10 years, especially since Nanaka was the only person who had ever been kind to him. Shinji reassured Iori, telling him that many people did not have perfect lives at home. Iori agreed with that statement and resolved to live his college life with enthusiasm as compensation. It was already late at night and some people had to leave since they had work the next day and needed to catch the train. Iori was about to go home as well, but Shinji and Ryujiro stopped him from leaving. Iori reasoned that he had orientation at 9 a.m. the next day, but Shinji assured him that he would be fine since they would make sure he would not be late. The next morning, Iori woke up only to realize that he had spent the whole night drinking with Shinji and Ryujiro. He panicked when he saw that his phone displayed 8:45 a.m. To his shock, he had fallen asleep outside, surrounded by a crowd of people who were even taking pictures of him. To make matters worse, he found himself in front of the campus auditorium. Ryujiro and Shinji smiled and told him that he would not be late. Iori had arrived at college filled with high hopes of meeting new people and starting a fresh chapter in his life. However, all of that was overshadowed by a gloomy beginning on his first day. Everyone remembered him as the guy who passed out in front of the auditorium. As Iori walked through campus, he overheard some girls admiring a handsome guy named Kohei. Iori looked at him but immediately lost any interest in approaching him when he saw the design on Kohei's shirt. That day, classes ended and some students were interested in checking out the clubs. Iori approached Chisa and asked if she wanted to walk with him to check them out. Without hesitation, Chisa walked away, reminding him not to talk to her while wearing those clothes. Iori wanted to change clothes but had no idea how to get home. Chisa was about to leave when Iori started following her, asking for directions. Chisa refused, not wanting to be seen walking with half-naked Iori. He then asked Chisa for her clothes. Chisa promptly reported to campus security that a half-naked person was asking her for clothes. Iori shouted that he and Chisa were cousins and should help each other. Chisa asked him not to say that out loud. Iori understood and threatened to tell everyone they lived together if she didn't give him her clothes. Frustrated, Chisa pretended Iori was committing a crime against her, prompting campus security to chase him. Fortunately, Iori managed to hide, still clueless about his wrongdoing. Suddenly, Kohei approached and asked what Iori was doing. Iori explained that the situation was complicated. Kohei offered to help, introduced himself, and asked Iori to explain. Iori said that Chisa wouldn't show him the way home or give him her clothes. Hearing this, Kohei informed campus security about Iori's location, thinking he was stalking and acting indecently. Iori claimed he had reasons, but Kohei ignored him and walked away. Iori then asked Kohei for his clothes, resulting in Iori becoming a fugitive from campus security again. Iori sneaked around looking for someone he knew to ask for help. At that time, there was a club exhibition and Iori hid at the diving club's booth. Nanaka and Ryujiro represented the Peekaboo Diving Club, handing out brochures and recruiting new members. Ryujiro told Iori that the coast was clear. Iori asked Ryujiro to lend him clothes. Ryujiro agreed on the condition that Iori recruited a new member for the diving club. Iori agreed and had a candidate in mind. Kohei was frustrated that there wasn't a club with a harem of high school girls idolizing him. Iori approached and encouraged Kohei not to give up, saying that if he persisted, his dream could come true. That's how the world works. Kohei realized that reality was harsh. Everyone told him he was dreaming and that there were no high school girls on campus, even though he hoped college life would bring his dream to life. Iori said such a place existed. Kohei just hadn't found the door to his dream yet. Iori invited Kohei to join him in opening that door. After joining the diving club, Kohei felt deceived by Iori. However, Iori finally got some clothes after recruiting Kohei. The diving club then started their celebration party. Ryujiro asked Iori what he wanted to drink. Iori requested oolong tea, but Ryujiro gave him vodka mixed with a bit of whiskey. Iori refused to drink it. Shinji wondered why Iori wouldn't drink it, noting that it looked like oolong tea. Ryujiro even showed that the drink could catch fire. Shinji handed Iori a glass of clear liquid that looked like water, but when Iori lit it with a match, it ignited. The diving club members toasted and drank alcohol together, while Iori stepped away and approached Chisa. She attended the event at her father's request and had also joined the diving club. Iori admitted he didn't want to join the club but was promptly dragged by Ryujiro and Shinji to drink with them. Reluctantly, Iori joined them. Shortly after, Kohei offered Iori a drink, but after tasting it, Iori realized it was vodka. Annoyed, Iori slammed his glass down and asked if Kohei was seeking revenge. Kohei said he had no such intention, he was just following their seniors' orders to get others drunk and recruit new members so he would join the club. Iori understood that someone had to make sacrifices and felt responsible for Kohei since he brought him into the club. Iori said he would get drunk alone and that Kohei should stick to drinking oolong tea. Kohei mentioned that Iori had made a beautiful self-sacrifice, but he only realized it was alcohol after taking a sip. Kohei immediately attacked Iori, and they started fighting. Shinji approached them and suggested a laughing contest. The rule was simple: whoever spit out their drink would lose. Iori and Kohei were intrigued by the idea, and all the club members cheered them on. In the first round, Iori had to hold back his laughter while Kohei tried to make him spit out his drink. Kohei attempted to make a ridiculous face, but it did not seem to work. Ryujiro then approached Kohei and advised him to change his strategy. He explained that people tend to laugh when they are supposed to remain serious. Taking his advice, Kohei decided to reveal something unexpected. He admitted that he used to be an otaku. The moment Iori heard this, he immediately spit out his drink. Kohei remarked that Iori could not hide his surprise, but Iori countered by saying that Kohei was the one who could not hide his otaku nature. Since Iori had lost the round, Shinji instructed him to do a sosu, meaning he had to chug an entire alcoholic drink in one go. Iori complied and immediately became dizzy, nearly bumping into someone. In his drunken state, he blurted out a pun in front of a senior. Upon hearing it, Kohei could not hold back and ended up spitting out his drink as well. As a result, Kohei also had to do a sosu. However, to everyone's surprise, Iori was ordered to do another one because making a pun in front of a senior was considered disrespectful. In the end, both Kohei and Iori had to chug their drinks together. They vowed to get back at each other for this, and the laughing contest continued until their bodies could no longer handle any more alcohol. Eventually, both of them ended up vomiting. Seeing this, Ryujiro poured them some liquid and handed it to them. They eagerly drank it, thinking it was water, but after reading the label on the bottle, they realized it was alcohol with a 96% alcohol content. Ryujiro simply remarked that they must really enjoy drinking. Meanwhile, Nanaka told Tashio that Iori had been hanging out with his friends from the club and had been out for 2 nights in a row. This meant Tashio had to reprimand him. The next morning, Iori and Kohei were in the lecture hall, completely naked. Shiza could not believe what she was seeing and had no idea how Iori had ended up like that. That day, Iori returned home with Chiza. Upon arriving at Grand Blue, they were met with the sight of Shinji, Ryujiro, and Tashio wearing only store aprons. Iori felt nauseous and wondered why they were dressed like that. They laughed with Ryujiro, explaining that they were about to go diving and were wearing swimsuits under the aprons. However, when Shinji and Ryujiro turned around, it was clear they had nothing on beneath the aprons. Suddenly, Nanaka informed them that the guest expected that day couldn't make it due to unforeseen circumstances. They all got dressed and sat down for lunch together. Shinji and Ryujiro mentioned they had free time before the drinking party that night and asked Iori how he planned to spend the time until evening. Iori replied that he didn't intend to join the drinking session that night. This annoyed Shinji, who promptly reminded Iori of the club he had joined. Nanaka suddenly asked if Iori knew where his room was, considering it was his 3rd day at Grand Blue. Iori realized he had been sleeping on campus for the past 2 days. Nanaka expressed understanding if Iori wanted to have fun on campus but insisted he couldn't sleep elsewhere for 3 consecutive days. Iori then conceded that he might indeed skip the drinking that night. Shinji and Ryujiro accepted this, noting that even without Iori, there were plenty of other members in the club. Suddenly, Ryujiro mentioned that they would be drinking that night with girls from Aonu Women's University. Hearing this, Iori begged Nanaka and Chiza for permission to join the party. Seeing Iori kneeling before Nanaka and Chiza, Ryujiro and Shinji asked what he was doing. Iori stated that he now remembered the club he had joined wasn't just about diving. Nanaka and Chiza were puzzled as to why Iori had taken off his clothes. Iori explained it was to show his sincerity. Despite Iori's earnest pleas, Nanaka remained firm, knowing he just wanted to have fun. At that moment, Iori asked Ryujiro and Shinji how he could get permission to go out that night. Shinji suggested giving up as Nanaka was very strict, but Iori refused to surrender. Shinji was curious about Iori's determination. Iori admitted it was driven by his sexual urges. Seeking advice on convincing Nanaka, Ryujiro suggested that Iori unpack his belongings in his room, but Iori felt that wasn't enough. Ryujiro then recommended decorating his room to make it look more mature. Ryujiro and Shinji even offered to help. Iori promptly informed Nanaka that he had finished unpacking and claimed he had become a mature man. When Iori showed Nanaka his room, she was shocked by the decor, filled with adult books, tapes, and pictures. Iori remarked that it wasn't supposed to be like that. Nanaka, surprised, commented that it seemed Iori had indeed matured. Shinji and Ryujiro asked Iori if the plan had worked. Iori scolded them, and Shinji wondered why it hadn't succeeded. Ryujiro noted that when a mother finds adult magazines in her son's room, she considers him grown up. Iori had hoped they would decorate his room normally, like a typical college student's first place living alone. However, Shinji and Ryujiro exclaimed that Iori should have said so earlier. Iori admitted his mistake in asking them for help and told them to take the magazines out of his room. Shinji said that he had actually planned to give one to Iori as a welcome gift and asked him to choose his favorite. Not long after, Chisa came to Iori's room to give him a shelf she no longer used. However, she suddenly saw Iori and his friends watching an adult film together. Without hesitation, Chisa hit Iori with the shelf she had brought. Iori blamed Shinji and Ryujiro for making Chisa misunderstand the situation. Shinji refused to take the blame, pointing out that Iori was the one who invited them to watch. Frustrated, Iori told them to leave but asked them to leave one tape behind for him. Shinji and Ryujiro refused to abandon Iori in his state of distress. They asked for one more chance to redecorate his room, and Iori decided to trust them. Iori then headed to the store where he ran into Toshio. Toshio asked if something had happened as Chisa looked upset. Iori explained that he was getting a warm welcome from his seniors. Toshio commented that Chisa was not handling the situation very maturely. Suddenly, Nanaka greeted Iori. As he was about to explain the misunderstanding about his room's decoration, Nanaka surprised him by saying she did not mind at all. She even mentioned that she had asked for friends, and they told her that it was normal for guys Iori's age. Iori explained that his seniors had been messing with him and that his room's decoration had already been restored to normal. Just then, Kohei was seen returning an adhesive to Toshio. Iori had a bad feeling about his room. His instincts proved right. Kohei had redecorated it entirely with images of loli characters. Horrified, Iori immediately tore down the giant poster. Kohei was furious and even cursed him for it. Iori was exasperated that his room was now filled with Kohei's terrible taste. Soon after, Shinji and Ryujiro arrived to check on Iori's room. They explained that they had asked Kohei to decorate it since he was also a freshman. However, this was not what Iori had wanted at all. He wanted the complete opposite. Kohei finally understood and agreed to redecorate the room again. Iori told him to leave, but Kohei refused. It turned out he had only done all of this in exchange for an adult tape featuring middle school girls, which the seniors had promised him. Not long after, Toshio called Iori over to help him. Although Iori had to go, he was still uneasy about what his room would look like next. His worst fears came true. When he returned, he found his room covered in BL, Boys Love, posters. Furious, Iori immediately punched Kohei. The new decoration was even worse than the last one. Iori ordered everyone to leave, but they ignored him. Shortly after, Nanaka called out to him, offering to help redecorate his room. However, Iori insisted that he was fine. Then the voices from the BL video the seniors were watching echoed through the room, sending shivers down Nanaka's spine. Horrified, she quickly left to call her friend again. Iori returned to his room and shouted that he would personally redecorate it so that he could finally join the party. He also wanted Nanaka to approve of the room's new look. Kohei asked if Iori had any ideas, and Iori decided to fill the room with pictures of Chisa, knowing how much Nanaka adored her younger sister. The seniors were skeptical about the concept, saying the room now looked like it belonged to a stalker. Kohei reminded everyone that the drinking party was about to start. However, Shinji informed them that the party had been postponed due to an issue. Iori was stunned to learn that the drinking party was not happening that day after all, meaning all his efforts had been for nothing. Moments later, Chisa arrived with tea. Upon seeing so many pictures of herself in Iori's room, she immediately took action, leading to Iori being confined in an empty room as punishment. The following morning, Iori woke up to find the club members gathered in his room. Curious about their presence, he asked why they were there. It turned out that the room was their usual gathering spot and they couldn't just change it because of him. Iori then headed to the shop where Toshio and Nanaka greeted him. Nanaka even complimented Iori for wearing clothes that day. Toshio inquired about any club activities scheduled. That day was meant for introducing new members who had joined. Nanaka asked how many new members there were. Ryujiro mentioned that 3 new members had joined: Kohei, Iori, and Chisa. Iori wondered why Kohei had come to Grand Blue. It turned out the seniors had informed him that voice actress Mizuki Kaya would be arriving at 10 o'clock. However, Iori was certain the seniors were lying, and sure enough, Shinji admitted it was just a prank. Unexpectedly, Kohei began to cry, feeling deceived. Toshio mentioned that lately, Mizuki Kaya had indeed been busy and couldn't visit for a while. Nanaka added that Mizuki Kaya used to come often, and even other celebrities did too. Kohei tried not to believe it, but Nanaka insisted she wasn't lying. Toshio even mentioned there was a diving suit that Mizuki Kaya used to wear. Hearing this, Kohei asked to try it on, a request that sounded somewhat inappropriate. Kohei then expressed interest in learning to dive. Chisa asked if she should join the diving lessons. Shinji allowed her to opt out since she was experienced, but Toshio requested Chisa to participate so she could understand how beginners learn to dive. Iori asked if he could just watch since he couldn't swim, but Ryujiro mentioned there are divers who can't swim, and according to Shinji, it would be a waste if Iori didn't at least try. Shinji instructed the 3 of them to swim. Iori remarked that it should be fine even if he couldn't swim. Shinji explained that while mastering swimming techniques wasn't necessary, all divers should become accustomed to water. They then proceeded to the changing room. The seniors explained that individuals afraid of water aren't suited for diving because they might panic during problems, making it hard to control breathing and leading to rapid air consumption. Therefore, safety is crucial, and they need ample practice. For basic training, Ryujiro asked Iori to open his eyes underwater. Iori attempted it but couldn't manage. Ryujiro then gave him a diving mask, and Shinji provided one for Kohei as well. After putting it on, Iori re-entered the water. He heard strange sounds, couldn't breathe, and couldn't move, but didn't feel pressure on his eyes. However, upon opening his eyes, he unexpectedly saw Kohei's naked body. Iori resurfaced, and Ryujiro asked if the underwater view was that astonishing. Iori didn't want to look again. Kohei scolded Shinji for removing his pants underwater, but Shinji claimed he was just helping Kohei stay calm. His diving equipment came off. At that moment, Chisa had just finished changing into her swimsuit and came out to join the practice. However, upon reaching the pool, she saw Iori completely naked, soaking in the pool. Seeing Chisa arrive, Iori felt a bit embarrassed and mentioned it was part of the training. Ryujiro commented that Iori liked taking off his clothes. Iori stated he didn't enjoy being naked. Chisa asked Ryujiro, who explained he was just training Iori to get used to the water. Chisa walked away to observe them from a distance. The seniors continued to persuade Iori to enjoy the beauty underwater, but Iori refused, stating he wasn't interested in going underwater anymore. After finishing practice, Iori sat alone in the shop. Nanaka approached him and asked how his diving practice had been. Iori replied that he hadn't enjoyed it at all. Nanaka then invited Iori to go somewhere with her. She took him to a large aquarium. Iori was puzzled as to why the aquarium allowed them in, considering it was already closed. Nanaka explained that Chisa sometimes helped out there. She showed Iori a video of Chisa diving in the aquarium. Seeing Chisa's friendly face and sweet smile, Iori remarked that it wasn't how he had imagined her before. Nanaka commented that Iori wasn't good at judging people and that Chisa was actually quite popular. She described Chisa as kind, and although she might sometimes be insincere and clumsy, she was sweet, good-natured, gentle, and had a pleasant scent. Iori gazed at the aquarium and mentioned that perhaps he should learn about fish too, as it might help him enjoy being underwater. Nanaka considered Iori's thoughts to be overthinking, pointing out that neither she nor Chisa had ever thought about that before. Iori speculated that it was because Nanaka and Chisa could swim and liked fish. Nanaka responded that no one instantly knows how to swim or has extensive knowledge about fish. They just want to experience what it's like. Iori didn't quite understand what Nanaka meant. Nanaka led Iori to a very large aquarium, and the view felt like an underwater world. Iori was amazed by it and felt as if he were in an underwater realm. However, Nanaka mentioned that it was merely an imitation of the underwater world, and there were many places to experience a world even more amazing than that. She revealed that it was actually Chisa who had asked her to bring Iori there, suggesting that perhaps Chisa wanted Iori to enjoy diving. Iori wondered why Chisa desired that. Nanaka speculated that Chisa simply wanted Iori to know that there was a beautiful world underwater. And that was also what Shinji and Ryujiro wanted. That's why they always encouraged Iori to dive. Iori then understood that no one likes to hear negative things about what they enjoy, and it's better to have many friends who share the same pleasures. That way it's more enjoyable for both him and them. Nanaka also wanted Iori to understand that although water can be intimidating, there's also a lot of fun to be had. Iori expressed that he was now more interested in the underwater world, which pleased Nanaka. After returning from the aquarium, Iori gave Chizette a keychain as a souvenir. Chizette remarked, asking if Iori hadn't considered how often she went there. Iori explained that the keychain was a token of his gratitude because Chizette had persuaded Nanaka to take him there. Chizette simply wanted Iori not to belittle diving activities, and Iori responded that he would give it a try. Chizette accepted the souvenir and asked how it felt underwater. Iori admitted that he didn't like it yet, but he wanted to get closer to it, which is why he wanted to give Chizette that gift, and he thanked her. Chizette suggested that Iori should have bought something cuter.